So you shared with us this, well, it's a remarkable collection of source material, and it's all focused on one project's trajectory. A
Right.
project that's been around for years, mostly is this huge distributed community, but it seems like something just clicked.
Mm.
It feels like it had this sudden, very strategic maturation in, what, just 30 days?
That's absolutely right. We are zeroing in on November 2025. Our sources, I mean, they really paint this month as the critical pivot point.
The pivot point. Yeah.
Yeah, where the Pi Network officially went from being, just a huge community with potential into what they are now confidently calling a trusted economic sphere. It's like, it's the shift from potential energy to kinetic force.
And that's the mission for this deep dive, right?
Yeah.
To understand the mechanics of that shift. Because it wasn't just one thing. It felt like a triple threat, all happening in parallel. We have to unpack these three areas of progress: massive user expansion, crucial financial compliance, and then, significant utility creation to actually drive demand.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because when you look at those three things, scaling to just unprecedented levels while also formalizing complex EU compliance and building functional apps
All at the same time.
all at once in a single month, that suggests a very, very orchestrated move.
It does, and that simultaneous execution is really the key takeaway here. I mean, if you look at the foundation they needed for what the sources are calling the coming era of open networks, they basically installed all the parts at once.
The steel, the wiring.
Exactly. The structural steel, the regulatory framework, the interior wiring. The high-level summary says it all. They hit 100 million downloads, they finalized the legal framework to operate in the EU, and then they immediately leveraged that status to enter the gaming sector in full force. That's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Between just having a large group of users and having a large, legally defined, economically functioning organization. So let's start there. Let's start with the sheer scale of it all. Let's talk numbers. The sources point to November 9th. That's the date the network hit what they're calling a mega app milestone. They officially surpassed 100 million cumulative app downloads. Just on the official stores like Google Play, I mean, we're talking big numbers.
The magnitude is truly staggering, but the aha moment isn't just the number itself.
It's the context.
It's the context. The sources emphasize that this download count now surpasses the installs of major established exchange apps. We're talking Coinbase, we're talking Binance.
Yeah.
This makes Pi Network one of the most widely downloaded crypto-adjacent apps in the world, period.
Okay, that's scale. But scale doesn't automatically mean, quality or utility.
Yeah.
So I have to ask the critical question here. Do the sources give us any sense of retention? Are these 100 million downloads actually 100 million active users? Or is this just a vanity metric built up over 5 years?
And that is the right question to ask. The sources approach it strategically. They don't give real-time active daily user counts, which is pretty standard. Instead, they focus on where the growth is.
Okay.
And it's concentrated. Explosive expansion in emerging markets, specifically Southeast Asia and Africa.
Why is that so critical?
Well, because that's where the cost to acquire users is lower, and more importantly, it's where mobile-first web adoption is just. It's accelerating the fastest.
Right.
So for their future goals, this global scale isn't just about market share, it's about future application. The sources explicitly connect this massive user base to a major strength for their long-term roadmap.
It is.
Training decentralized artificial intelligence, a community of 100 million people becomes a foundational data layer. You get unique data sets, training parameters, real-world feedback, all necessary for next-gen decentralized AI. Even if only, say, 10% are active, that's a massive base to leverage.
That reframes it completely. It goes from a simple marketing metric to a strategic resource. But like we said, getting to 100 million is one thing. Getting them to actually participate in the economy is another. Which brings us to that huge hurdle they removed on November 3rd.
Yes, the accessibility update. This was a classic friction point. Before November, a new user, a pioneer, had to wait. You had to log 30 separate mining sessions.
So a full month.
Effectively, yeah, 30 days of consistent activity before you were even eligible to start the mainnet migration and the mandatory KYC process.
A month of waiting just to verify your identity and get onto the live network. I mean, that's a huge abandonment rate just waiting to happen.
Exactly. And they recognized that this friction was it was counterproductive if you're aiming for mass adoption. So the requirement was removed with this thing they call fast-track KYC.
And what does that mean in practice?
It means new pioneers can start the identity verification process immediately, right when they download the app. The sources call it the smoothest entry into Web3. And it's a necessary move if you want to convert all those downloads into actual economic participants.
But if you remove the wait period, you have to keep it secure, right? What assurance do we get that fast track doesn't just mean fast scam?
That's a crucial point. The sources explain that removing that manual wait time is offset by the tech itself. The verification is now handled by an advanced AI-powered system.
Okay.
And this system manages all the biometric and documentation checks that KYC standards require. It basically accelerates the process with automation, but without lowering the security bar. It allows for high volume and high compliance at the same time, which is essential if you're trying to onboard a user base larger than many countries into a regulated framework.
And that brings us perfectly to the second pillar, formalization. Because scaling is great, but becoming a trusted economic sphere, that requires legitimacy, real status as a financial asset. And that seems to be what was cemented on November 19th with the release of the official MiCA white paper. Here's where it gets really interesting. Because this regulatory maneuver, I think, is the linchpin of the entire November strategy.
It really is. MiCA is the EU's markets in crypto assets regulation. It's not just a guideline. It's the comprehensive legal framework for crypto across all 27 EU member states. By issuing this official white paper through a company called PiBazar Ltd, they're declaring formal adherence to the highest standard of European regulation.
So they're not just dipping their toe in, they're building the boat right there in the regulatory harbor.
Exactly.
But the truly fascinating part, the strategic choice that really dictated their future, was the specific legal classification they chose for the Pi token within that MiCA framework.
What's fascinating here is the subtlety of it. MiCA defines several types of crypto assets. You have e-money tokens, asset reference tokens like stablecoins, and then security tokens, which have really rigorous rules.
Right.
The Pi white paper officially classifies their token as an other crypto asset.
Other, and why is that classification so important? Because other can sometimes mean catch-all or, undefined.
Exactly. And in this context, other is strategic genius. This classification lets them formally define the token as having a primary purpose beyond being a traditional investment or being pegged to fiat. By taking this path, the document explicitly says that the tokens will not be subject to investor protection obligations under MiCA.
Okay, wait, let me just repeat that for our listener, because that's the core legal strategy here. They sought full EU regulatory compliance, but they simultaneously classified their asset in a way that legally exempts them from the most stringent requirements.
Yeah.
The ones designed to protect investors from financial loss.
That is precisely the balancing act. Investor protection obligations, which typically apply to security tokens, they involve massive disclosure requirements, liability, constant oversight. By choosing other crypto assets, they are minimizing their regulatory burden.
And maximizing their speed to market.
And their liquidity potential, exactly.
So this classification is not an accident. It's a very deliberate choice to prioritize functionality and listing speed. What was the immediate goal of this choice, according to the sources?
The intention is crystal clear. The whole document is designed to enable seamless trading on MiCA-compliant exchanges. The sources even specifically name OKX as an exchange they are targeting.
So it's a direct path to listing.
It is. This regulatory finesse, avoiding the high liability classifications while getting the necessary formality, it lays the groundwork for a major exchange listing, for establishing real liquidity, which they expect to happen in the second half of 2025 and into 2026. This isn't just about compliance. This is the regulatory green light for mass market adoption as a tradable asset.
This does raise a big question, though. When a project with 100 million users goes to this much effort to get compliance status but avoids investor protection rules, it suggests they're defining themselves as a utility network first.
Right, not a security.
Not a security or an investment. It's a calculated risk management strategy.
It's the ultimate utility token strategy, taken to the regulatory extreme. They're essentially telling the market, we meet the standards for global trading, but we are not promising you an investment return, nor are we subject to the liabilities of traditional securities. This allows them maximum freedom in defining the token's use cases, which brings us perfectly to that third pillar, utility creation.
Right. If the MiCA paper delivered legitimacy, then the ecosystem updates deliver the actual functionality. On November 17th, we saw a big upgrade to the Pi App Studio, and it seems specifically designed to inject utility and, diversify the content for those 100 million pioneers.
This update was critical because it just lowered the barrier for app development so dramatically. The core idea here is hybrid development. The key new features now let developers download the source code of their Pi apps, edit them locally with other, more powerful tools, and then re-upload them.
So you're using their studio for the basic infrastructure, but external tools for the heavy lifting and customization.
Precisely. And this is where the AI integration makes that whole vision of turning anyone into an app developer actually plausible.
How so?
Generative AI is now built into the re-upload process. So if you've made local edits, the AI can do quality assurance, suggest improvements, and even make corrections to your code before it gets deployed on the network.
That's a game changer. It means you don't have to be a full-stack engineer to build a sophisticated app. You can have a basic idea, use their templates, refine the code with specialized tools, and then let the AI make sure it doesn't break everything.
It dramatically increases the potential diversity and sophistication of the apps they can expect to see, which is vital if you want to keep 100 million users interested. But the biggest splash in utility creation came a week later, with their entry into one of the most transaction-heavy sectors in the world.
Gaming.
Gaming.
The announcement on November 27th, the partnership with the developer City Games. This sounds like an immediate monetization strategy.
It is, but it's also tied to that larger utility objective. The partnership is meant to deliver high-quality games that use the Pi token directly for payments, for item purchases, for rewards, all through something called the Eastex Pi gaming system. And this is explicitly part of the mandate of Pi Network Ventures.
So what's the strategic goal here? Why focus on gaming so specifically?
Gaming offers the single best way to drive high-frequency, low-stakes transactions. Their aim, as the sources state, is to go beyond simple entertainment and create real-world utilities that are robust enough to get tens of millions of users to use Pi daily.
And games are sticky. They drive habitual use. And how are they making sure this can spread quickly across that huge, diverse user base?
They're accelerating the rollout through a specific technical choice: a lightweight HTML5-based gaming platform. This is deliberate. HTML5 maximizes accessibility. It ensures quick deployment and functionality across a huge range of mobile devices, no matter their processing power or connection speed.
So everyone can play.
It ensures that those 100 million pioneers, especially in those emerging markets we talked about, have frictionless access and can immediately start engaging in the Pi economy through simple, fun transactions.
So what does this all mean?
It means November 2025 was the moment the project really shed its skin. It wasn't just a successful month. It was a pivot point that simultaneously delivered the three things you need to be taken seriously as a global player.
Right.
Massive, strategically focused scale with that 100 million download milestone, formal, strategic regulatory compliance with the MiCA white paper, and concrete, high-frequency utility driven by the gaming partnership and the app studio.
The sources repeatedly drive home this idea that the simultaneous progress in securing compliance and generating real demand, it shows they've created an enduring foundation. They're ready to trade and function as a regulated entity, even if they started as a pure community project.
Which brings us back to that fundamental legal architecture. If Pi tokens are officially classified as other crypto assets to enable immediate trading and, strategically avoid certain investor protections, the question for you to consider is this: how might this specific regulatory maneuver redefine the relationship between a crypto project's massive, globally distributed community and its eventual formal financial valuation, especially when that valuation is built on speed, liquidity, and minimal regulatory liability? It really forces you to think about whether the value is coming from the community or from the classification that enables their entry into the market.